Hey, we're live. All right. Hello, Bytes. My name is Null. Oh, wait, sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Kody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis and also the host of the Null Byte show. And it's a really exciting first ever crossover episode of the Hacking with Friends live stream that I do every week. And also, the regular old show, that we do all the time in Null Byte. So it's really cool to finally do this. It's been kind of a couple months in the making, and I'm really excited also to have the live chat up so that we can see the questions that you guys have and hopefully answer them in real time. So yeah, this is only the second ever live stream we've done. We got a really positive response on the first one. So you know what? We figured, hey, we'll do it again. So thank you to everyone in the chat that was on the last one for helping us out and making this happen. And also we've got a couple moderators today in the chat. We have Zam, one of the really active people on our Hacking with Friends stream. And we also have James, the creator of the Hunator, which is a tool that we were working on and showing off a lot this year. So you probably saw it featured on Null Byte and also the SecurityFWD channel. So also really cool to have some talented people helping us out in the stream today. So if you're in the chat, then you can go ahead and ask us questions and we will try to answer them while we do this stream. But actually what we're gonna be showing you today is kind of like much more like a Null Byte episode. So all right, how does the typical Null Byte episode go? Well, we talk about why something's important, then we show you guys what it is, and then we go through the steps of actually doing it so you guys can see how easy it is and the applications of what this thing is. So I work, my day job that I do is I work at Varonis, and what we do is make sure that when big companies are attacked, we can detect those sorts of attacks. And one of the biggest types of attacks that you've probably seen in the news that lots of people get fooled by is the old opening a malicious Word document attack. And you see people in these companies that are really important, but like maybe lower level people, but the companies do lots of important stuff, and they get an email from HR saying that they got a bonus or some other super juicy topic that makes them want to open. I know a logistics company that got popped by this because they opened an email that was an invoice they weren't expecting from someone that they had worked with before. So and the invoice was huge. So they're like, oh my gosh, there must have been some mistake. What happened here? So this is a really common thing that hits normal businesses all the time, or even individuals. And we want to show you guys how this actually works and what the process is behind a hacker creating something that really is a piece of malware that when you open it, if you click that button, or if you're lured into clicking the button and allowing macros, can actually take over a Windows computer and start doing all sorts of malicious stuff. So at Varonis, they created this awesome lab that shows exactly how this is done. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, well, for one, this is terrifying. And for two, this would be perfect for an episode of Null Byte, because we kind of dance around this topic a lot of the time. And we also have to be kind of careful because, as you guys know, the more offensive the techniques we choose to show on Null Byte, the more we tend to get censored and get a strike or otherwise get our videos taken down. We've had to be very careful about that. And it's been a difficult year, but I think we've managed to walk that very carefully because we are now the #1 hacking channel on YouTube, as far as I'm aware of. So it's really cool also because I work for Hack5. I grew up as soon as I got started hacking, watching them, and now we've edged just a little bit further, past them in terms of subscribers. So working with them and just being able to put energy into both projects, one that's been around forever that I really admire, and one that's been my baby, bringing Null Byte up, and watching them kind of converge and now they're on the same level, has been crazy. So thank you to everybody from Null Byte for making that happen and allowing me to continue to make these awesome videos for you. So without further ado, I want to introduce my sometimes co-host on the SecurityFWD stream. So if you guys want to see more of Kilian, you can check out the SecurityFWD stream because that's where, alongside the threat update that he does where he lives. But Kilian, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kody. This is really exciting. This is my first time being on this show with you, so a whole new audience, and it's great to be here. As you mentioned, I am a sometimes co-host on SecurityFWD, which is awesome. I love watching it too as just a viewer. I learn a lot there too. But in terms of my kind of regular old day job, I also work at Varonis, and one of the shows that I put on is on the, I guess the brand channel, if you'll call it. And we do what we call threat updates. So myself and one of our incident responders at Varonis, we get on and we talk about some of the hottest topics that we see in the news or what we're investigating as a company, and really focus on how organizations can help detect it, prevent it, investigate it, and what those steps look like, and really learn from the experience that we have as a company. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, so one thing that I think is really cool also is lots of people on Null Byte are like, hey, how do I get into cybersecurity? What are the jobs in cybersecurity like? And like, since getting into the cybersecurity field, there's all sorts of people involved in this field. There's people that are out there doing sales, there's people doing technical work, there's people doing like my job where I create content to kind of let you guys know what this job is like and what it's like to get into it. So there's lots of different things you can do once you get into cybersecurity. And Kilian and I both have very different but also very cool jobs. So if you're looking to get into cybersecurity, there's a lot of different people you can look to for what it looks like to be in a bigger cybersecurity like job. And Kilian gets to work with super big companies that you've probably heard of and gets to help them figure out what went wrong when they start getting all these like anomalous readings that they might not understand, or they might not even have the staff to understand because it's something that's so crazy that it's never happened to them before. Because like nation state attacks are like all over the news now, and when these sorts of really sophisticated things happen, like these people need specialists to come in and like figure out something that might be above and beyond the stuff that they're trained to do on a daily basis. So I love kind of bringing you guys an expert to ask questions for. So if you have questions also for Kilian about what it's like to work in his job, or what it's like to work kind of trying to figure out like these big attacks and stuff, like sometimes and communicate like how this stuff works to big companies, then feel free to ask in the chat and I will relay these questions, because that is something that I know a lot of people have asked about in the past. So Kilian, what are we going to be going over today, and why is this a big deal?
Sure. So this is a really exciting lab. This is a really cool one. So today we're going to focus on macros embedded inside Word documents. And not just that, because that's been around for a while. Some of you out there might know this, but specifically how we can craft the process to bypass some endpoint controls. Typically when we talk about really defense in depth in terms of security at an organization, it's stacking on layer after layer after layer of detective and preventative controls in there to try and detect or stop an attack as soon as we can. And Kody, as you mentioned in the intro, so often we see phishing emails, and these booby-trapped documents are really the source of it. And oftentimes, at least I get asked, like, hey, well, we have these controls in place. Is it not caught by that? And that's really what we want to go into, is there are ways that attackers can bypass some of these controls, and why it's critical to have multiple layers in place to catch it.
Yeah, so a good way of thinking of this is like, there's no security solution that's a silver bullet. You basically have to assume that somebody, if they put enough time and energy, is going to be able to bust through like some of these common security providers. I mean, you guys heard about the SolarWinds thing. Like, that was crazy. That was a very well-trusted security provider, and like people put a lot of energy into going after them because like the reward was huge. So like people basically have to assume at this point that at some point they're going to get popped, and when they do, they need to have multiple different layers of detecting that. So what's kind of cool about Varonis is like, it actually looks for sketchy behavior. It doesn't look for like a virus that's like known. It just looks for like stuff that viruses do, because like it kind of like on a macOS system, like Patrick Wardle creates really great free tools for detecting like malware and ransomware and stuff, because instead of like looking for like a ransomware signature, it just looks for anything that's like encrypting a bunch of files like all of a sudden very quickly and warns you. And like I love that feature, because like even though there's a couple false alarms that pop up, I'm able to very quickly shut down anything that looks like full on like suspicious. So like, yeah, it's kind of cool to know that a lot of these really big organizations, they assume they're going to get breached. So what they do is they have like all these different mechanisms to be able to detect like when someone sneaks their way in and like slips up like one tiny time in doing something out of the ordinary. So it's just made it really hard for these like advanced attackers to be able to get away with stuff, because they have to do certain things and access certain files, or like get like move them off site. And once they do, there's certain tools in place to be able to catch this like sus behavior, like rather than actually just relying on like a known type of malware. So really cool stuff. I didn't really know that existed before I got like hired at a larger cybersecurity company. I just assumed everyone had like antivirus, but really there's so many traps and things that you can do as an attacker or like as a red team that will get you busted, because like no one's ever done that before in that service account or like something like that. That's really what we do, and that's kind of cool. So we're going to talk about the Office macro backdoor, as CL Audio
Right.
just asked about. So just wanted to give you guys some context about like what it is that we do and why we know about this stuff, because like, you know, we get a lot of criticism sometimes about teaching these techniques, but like you guys will see this is so simple that you basically have to know that this is this easy, because anybody could do this. And if you don't know about it, then, you know, or if your company doesn't know about it, then you're vulnerable to this sort of thing. Or, you know, somebody on your team could be like, hey, I got this invoice that says I have to click this button to see it, but it seems really important. You can be like, no, like don't do that. Or if you already did, you like shut down your computer, let's take it to somebody to get it looked at before something bad happens. So just want to like note, if this video gets flagged by YouTube, the reason we're teaching this is because a child could do this. And we want to make sure that everyone is aware how simple this is and the bad stuff that can happen from this attack. So Kilian, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Sounds good. So as Kody mentioned, and for all the audience out here, we're going to start the process assuming that we've received the email and like downloaded the attached Word document, or in this case, it's an Excel document in for the demonstration here. But this can take a number of different forms. So on my desktop here, I have my clean Excel.xlsm. So it has macros in it. And I'm going to open this guy up. Now, the nice thing that hopefully everybody can see here is that typically when there are macros and things like that embedded or active content, Microsoft does put up a little flag here. You see the security warning along the top to enable content. Now, this is one warning, and it's pretty common. People see it a lot of times, and there are plenty of legitimate reasons to have active content, especially in like an Excel or something like that. So think if you're doing complex formulas or calculations or having it automatically load data from multiple sources, you would absolutely need to turn this on to run macros. So having a macro in a document like this is not always malicious or bad. So there are reasons here, but this is a nice warning. And I feel like we get a lot of instances where people click this by habit because we're so used to it. You know, click to enable editing or click to enable content is common, but it's a nice warning. But using some clever social engineering, there are ways around this. So despite my better judgment, I'm going to go ahead and enable content. Well, nothing really bad happened there. How bad could it possibly be at this point?
Okay,
right?
so point of view, you're a secretary somewhere. You just don't want to get fired because you got an email that seems really important and you can't seem to open it, and you don't want to ask for help because it would make you look weak. So you go ahead and enable it, and suddenly nothing happens. Or actually in the really good ones, like it'll enable something, and like you'll be like, you can see the rest of the document and it just looks like stupid or like an obvious mistake, and then you discard it. Like really the desired behavior here is like the attacker sends you something that's really juicy, again, like an invoice, a raise, a huge bill that you weren't expecting, like something emotionally charged. And in order to see it, usually you'll open it and there'll be a big thing that says like, to enable viewing this document, you must accept the button, and with a big arrow. They love putting the arrow for like, in case you're just like half asleep and just like click on anything that you're directed to. So like, these are the big warning signs for like when you're about to experience what just happened here. But as you saw, like there were no fireworks. Like, you know, like nothing like crazy happened. Like really, like this attack is very stealthy because, oh, and we also have like a self-described Excel fetishist in the chat that says that this is their nemesis. But like really, like if you are not paying attention, or if you're not like a technical person, this is how you can breach a multi-million or billion-dollar company right here. This is what it looks like. And it doesn't look, you know, like anything that suspicious. It's really like they should make it red, not yellow, or like the little warning there, or maybe flashing a little bit, because really this is abused so often that like it's a very, very common ways for attackers to break into very large companies.
Absolutely. Kody, I have to point out, I love your business voice reading that. I love the business voice character that you did there. You captured the essence, right?
I have to say, I used to work in the fashion industry doing cybersecurity and stuff, and like strong personalities went out there. So that's kind of who I draw on when I do that voice.
Perfect. So and you're exactly right. So let's dive in under the covers and see what happened or didn't happen so far and build out the process here. So I'm going to go into view and I'm going to look at my macros here. And I can see that there, of course, I know this document has some in here, and I'm going to edit them very quickly. So I can see, let me make this a little bit bigger, and I can probably zoom in then too. So hopefully the audience can see. So in this case, we can see the macro here, and hopefully everybody can see. I can zoom in a little bit too if it helps the audience.
Perfect.
There you go. I'll have to zoom back out, but that zoom was very stressful on my computer. It went very slow, so bear with me. So in this case, we have just an incredibly basic macro here. So the sub macro is just a function, basically, if we have programmers out there. And all it does in this case is it has a little message box. So it pops up a little message box that says, hello for my first macro. But as you notice, when I opened the document and enabled the content, it didn't do that. It didn't say anything. And that's because this macro needs to be run manually. Now, of course, as an attacker, I don't think they're going to get very far. And Kody, keep me honest here. If you email somebody and say, hello, kind sir or madam, would you mind coming into my macro and running this because I'd like to exploit your system? Like, if you don't mind. I don't think that's going to get us very far. So,
probably not, although I have seen some really sweet, like low budget, like ransomware attacks that are just like, hello, good sir, I am from a country that does not have good computers. I kindly request that you please delete every file on your system and send me $200, and hopefully I will help you restore them. Have a great day. Like, maybe. I mean, at least you were nice and upfront too. I appreciate
friendly.
like, being straightforward.
Right.
But I declined.
Yeah. So let's take a look. Let's run this macro and see what happens. So I'm going to click on my little play icon here, and you can see in the workbook, Excel pops up, hello for my first macro. There we go. That's nice. That's friendly. Doesn't help me get very far exploiting anybody or bypassing stuff. So, let's take it to the next level. I'm going to cheat everybody. I have all of my commands written down. We don't want to spend 16 hours watching me type and mistype things. So I have all of my commands here that I'm going to copy in very quickly. The next one I'm going to use is an auto opening one. So this process, just so everyone knows, is it's going to build on every one of the previous steps. And I'm going to work and build this out together so you can see how kind of little incremental changes result in kind of a big effect towards the end. So in this case, let me go ahead and save it because I need to do this on open. Now it is workbook_open. So basically, this function will now run when the workbook opens. And it's the same message again. So hello from the first macro. So I've saved this guy here. Let me close it out. Close out my macro. And simply reopen it. Or reopen my Excel document. So here we have the enable content again. I'm going to click that guy. And boom, there we go. So hello for my first macro. So there we go. We're off to a good start. Now when I click enable content, it does something, right? Very simple, little friendly message. That's nice. Makes me feel good. Hello from my first macro. But nothing malicious so far. So let's build on this a little bit more. Cool. Let's take it to the next level. Let's have it do something now. The next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to collect a little bit of information from my system. So an attacker, when they get in, the first thing they want to do is they want to find out a little bit about maybe the account that's logged in. So if they get, this is indiscriminate, if they're sending out to who knows who, what might happen is they won't know the user clicking on it necessarily if they're sending it out to hundreds or thousands of users. So in this case, it's going to run on open again. It's going to create a new shell or create a new object. Here's the create object of a shell. And it's going to run in that shell the command, who am I? So real basic, real straightforward command. And then it's going to write that output to the message box. So creating the instance of the shell here, and then running the command, and who am I? So very, very straightforward type of stuff. And then, just going to read out the output of that to the message box. I'll close it and open it again one more time, but that's this. Trust me when it runs on open. So let me say this one more time. Nobody wants to see me closing and opening Excel for 2 hours either.
So one thing I also wanted to mention is a couple people have been like, why has Microsoft not fixed this? If it's like this simple to do it, why is it not like more widely known, and why don't they fix it? And Zam pointed out that like in order to fix this, it would break a lot of like backwards compatibility or convenience features, and basically like make it so it's harder to use their products because their products all come together and work in certain ways to be able to, for example, like if you open an email and it has like a spreadsheet or something in it or whatever, just work together to be able to do this. So the beauty of this working is that like they could disable this and it would be very simple, but it would also break a bunch of stuff, like things that people rely on for convenience, and they would get a lot of complaints if they started locking this down to the point that it was breaking convenience features. So for people in the chat who are asking like, why is this still possible? It's just because this is the way that Microsoft products work together. And if you know the way that they work together, then you can use them working together to potentially do bad things.
Yeah, and there are legitimate reasons to have macros here too. Just really quick, I did close this and open this again, and if anybody watching noticed, I did get an access denied error And
Oh.
if we look over here, it was blocked. So, womp womp.
So
I guess the attack is over now. We all go home.
yeah, so it looks like, Windows saw us coming, like it wouldn't allow us to
Right.
just do this. And by the way, for people asking in the chat, this will be recorded later. You'll be able to see it on both the Security Forward channel, which is on hackingwithfriends.com, or you can go on Null Byte and you'll be able to see the recording of this. So if you're sleepy, don't worry. You'll be able to watch this when you've had your coffee.
I hear that. I hear that. You never hurts to have a little bit more coffee. So in this case, when we went to run this, when it went to create the instance of the shell, we got blocked. And this is where that macro bypass comes in. So there are controls for this. And maybe that's a great point to everybody in here. There are some mitigating controls within the system that will block some of this functionality. And in this case, on this particular machine, we have some Windows Defenders components enabled on the system that are specifically designed to block this type of activity. So spawning that new process under Excel. And let me just flip it open really quick so everybody can see. So the block all Office applications from creating child processes. So Kody, and I think that the audience is onto this, there are some completely legitimate reasons to have macros within the documents, but spawning a child process from them is definitely weird and odd behavior. So Microsoft has gone and created some controls to block this, and we've enabled on this system here.
Also, we have someone in the chat who's saying, I told you, string shell in macro is on blacklist.
See, they're too smart. They're too smart. Well, I don't know. Now I'm worried. We'll show them how to get past it in just a second. But I wanted to show this. This is a fantastic control. I love this control. I definitely encourage anybody who can to enable this because it will help block some of these attacks. And I'm not bad-mouthing Microsoft. I love Microsoft. I spend many hours a day talking with them on the phone about various things. So this is not bad-mouthing them, and this is a great control, and I encourage everybody to use it. So full disclaimer there, but I am going to show people some tricks to get around it, right? So really quick, Kody, we have this great blocking thing, and it'll block Office apps from creating child processes. And those apps include Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Access. Seems like a lot of the common ones. Are we missing any?
Where do I get my email again?
That's a good question. I think it's what is it? Outlook.
Oh, interesting.
There we go. So that's a pretty interesting one here, and it makes complete sense. And Kody, I know you and I have talked about this at length before many times, and it makes sense. Like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that, spawning these processes, but Outlook being excluded, and it's a pretty straightforward reason, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree. How many times do you open like a Word document or an Excel document or some other type of PDF, whatever it happens to be, from an email? So from Outlook, it would spawn that process to open the other document. So it makes sense that it wouldn't be on this list. That would cause a nightmare of problems here. But we're going to exploit that.
So one thing I want to point out is like a lot of people think that to get into security or cybersecurity, you really need to be like a computer scientist and be able to like look into the source code of everything. It's like, this is literally, in order to figure out this bypass, you look at the list of stuff that's allowed, figure out the application that's not on that list, and then use that to bypass the security control. It's very basic. And by the way, for Zuber, who is continually shouting out his intent to send this to his teacher to modify his grades, please stop confessing to crimes on our stream. Let's go.
But yeah, with just a little bit of basic, VB script here, we can put this together, and it's just a little bit of time and a little bit of research, and we can have something that's workable. So here we know this one was blocked, and we had very smart viewers who caught that. Yeah, you can't open the shell here. So let me modify my code ever so slightly. Let me grab my next section to show you how to bypass that control. So I'm going to copy this here.
And one thing we need to point out, because there's a lot of beginners on the Null Byte stream, Kilian, is it legal for you to send this to someone who has not consented for you to access their computer?
No, that would be very, very bad. Please don't do that.
And what would, yes, so there are multiple different laws in the United States that prohibit sending something like this that would actually give you access to someone's computer that is protected. You can look this up under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and like, there's lots of different ways you could be prosecuted for doing this. So all jokes aside, from people like Zuber in the chat, like joking about sending this to their teacher, please be very careful about stuff like this. These are real cybersecurity concepts, and you are ultimately ultimately responsible for your own actions. And we need to explicitly say that as we teach these techniques, we're teaching these to protect you and not to enable you to go use them against other people. If you do, we're letting you know ahead of time that they are illegal. This is very easy to trace, and you would very certainly be caught if you did get away, even if you did succeed. So please, don't prevent us from teaching this sort of stuff, because really we need to get this information out there so people understand it, and a couple people abusing it can ruin it for everyone. So
yeah, and that's a great point too. This is actually being run in a closed-off lab that our security team built for us to do explicitly this. So this isn't connected to anything else. This isn't even on our corporate network or anything. So this is very closed container designed just for this.
Could we also enlarge your font a little bit? We've got a couple of people on the stream that are trying to see it.
There we go. While I talk through this, we'll make it a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can see that. So in this case, we have our workbook open. So same thing, it's going to run on workbook. I'm not going to bother closing and opening the workbook. We have already established that. But as our eagle-eyed viewers pointed out, we couldn't spawn that shell directly. So in this case, we have up here, oops, that the screen repositions when I move my mouse too far. So I will try not to move my mouse.
Someone was asking if you could zoom in even a tiny bit further, but I'm not sure if that's easy.
Yeah. I can maybe give it a little shot.
Yeah. Oh, I can see it beautifully.
Nice. Okay, cool. Hopefully everyone can see that well. So in this case, the first line of code here creates a new instance of Outlook. So create object Outlook as my new object here. So this is how we're going to get around it. So the first thing we do is we're going to spawn that new Outlook object. And then underneath if you see the I can't move my mouse too much, but OBJOL, so object Outlook, underneath that, this is where we're going to create the new instance of that shell. So create object shell under that, because we know Outlook can spawn child processes. And then inside of the shell, we're going to execute the whoami command. That's the third one down there. So inside of WSH shell, execute the whoami command. And then we're going to pop that up to our message box in our Excel. So let me zoom back out so I can run it. There we go.
A lot of people are also asking if there's a GitHub repository or if we're putting this online, because this is a very active exploit, and also because it's 6 lines of code. We're not going to be providing it, but if you just pause this and write down 6 lines of code, you found the workaround. But anyway, Kilian, go on.
No, that's perfect. And then this is stuff just, real basic research and a little bit of VB code. We're not doing anything crazy, and that's the point.
Someone's also questioning our legality of doing this by saying that how are we streaming if this is a closed lab? The environment that Kilian's working on is a virtual environment, but we're still streaming to the real world. So we're not attacking real computers, we're attacking virtual services that are running on our own stuff, and that is perfectly legal to do.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So in this case here, we can see that my lab, and I'm the IT app, and I know that's who I'm logged in with. So look, that all worked. I mean, exactly like we had told you it was going to work. Now we have that information. So just to prove my point out, so nobody thinks I'm doing any magic or trickery or anything like that, I want to stop it really quick, and I want to show everybody what this looks like behind the scenes. So I'm going to simply uncomment my line of code. This is not super exciting. Just uncomment that code. And what it's going to do is, in the process before the message box comes up, it's just going to run PowerShell and it's just going to sleep. So it's going to let me see everything happening behind the scenes.
So normally this would happen too quickly for you to notice, really.
Right. Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and run this again. And you can see here's my PowerShell. It's just sleeping. Nothing particularly interesting is happening there. But I have my process explorer. Let me, once I find what I'm looking for, I'll zoom in. So here are all of my running processes in here. And you can see, and I will zoom in right now. There we go. So here's my Outlook. Here's my PowerShell, which is sleeping. And then here's my shell. So the child process is running under my Outlook process here. And Outlook is running by itself. Let me zoom out just a touch, and I will find my Excel process so everybody can see. So here's Excel. So you can see there's nothing running underneath Excel. All of my child processes are here under Outlook, and that's how we were able to succeed. So there's a new, again, instance of Outlook running, and under that is where we spawned the PowerShell and the shell command. So just so everybody believes me, I'm not doing anything crazy. Here it is. The proof is in the pudding. You can see that while I did initiate the macro from Excel, this is how I've gotten around it. So it's actually running under Outlook here. So far, so good.
Sneaky.
Right?
So a couple of people are also in the chat, again, asking where this is going to be recorded. You can check this out on Null Byte, or if it's taken down on Null Byte, or if you just want to check out our other channel, you can go to SecurityFWD, that's SecurityFWD, and check out the Hacking with Friends stream, where this will be saved as well. You can also go to hackingwithfriends.com, and you'll find it there too.
Cool. Very good. So this is where we're going to get a little bit trickier. So now we've proved that we can bypass some of those commands, so that blocking command. But as we know, running something on the back end is maybe just the first portion of it. But one of the first things that attackers want to do is once they get in, they need to establish some sort of command and control channel to be able to issue commands back and forth, right? And typically, most attackers are not just sitting there at the computer, issuing commands. If you're at the computer, you can own it in plenty of other different ways at this point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show how we can establish a remote connection. Now, again, eagle-eye people in this lab or in the stream are going to point out that this lab is closed. I'm actually just going to run the connection on the same box. So that explains that it's not going out over the internet. It's actually even on the same machine that we're running on. Let me open up my command and control channel very quickly and show you in this case here. Minimize that.
So one question we got was, would it be possible to exploit on a macOS system, or does it work only for Windows? And would it work for word clones like LibreOffice or OpenOffice? And then there was another question about whether we could do this in Python. Also, we should double check the stream because we're getting a couple of comments like it might have been slowed down. But if you're having any problems seeing the stream, please let us know.
Yeah. So those are excellent questions. So the particular code that I'm running now is specific to Windows. I'm sure that there is some version of it that you can spawn on Mac. You can probably spawn a bash shell or whatever with some of this code. I've never done it myself, but I imagine it shouldn't be too terribly difficult. In terms of the Office clones, I assume or I believe probably most of them have some type of macro capability. I don't know if they have any built-in controls or detection around that or prevention on it. But my guess is you can probably do something similar on them, but I'm not 100% sure. Just answer those questions quickly.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. So here in this case, speaking of Python, our command and control server is written in Python. So hooray, Python, right? This is just a very kind of basic and straightforward one at this point. So it's starting on my desktop in my lab, same machine, but this could work across the machines or the internet here. So just wanted to point that out. So let me jump back over here to my Visual Basic, and let me scroll just back down to the bottom here, just so everyone can see. And I'll zoom in a couple times so everyone can see what I'm working on.
I'm seeing the same thing they are, so I'm like straining my eyes a little bit. Okay, but that's good.
Yeah. There we go. I'll just zoom in and out so I can move up and down. So in this case, my main function is just that workbook open. So again, this will execute on open. I'm not going to bother with that. And what you're going to notice here is that I have a couple different functions, really. So, and I'll show you what this looks like. The first one we have is run command. The run command function, spoiler alert, is all of the things that we just looked at a moment ago. We just put them in a separate function now, so we can call that. And in this case, we're going to pass the variable ipconfig. That's going to be the command we want to run in the shell. And I'll show you what the code snippet looks like. It's the same one we've been looking at. We have our message box that will report the information out of that. And then we have a new function called send to server that will also post that up to my Python interface. So let me scroll way up here to the top and just show everybody the run command one more time. There we go. So run command, it gets a string. The string is just going to be the command we want it to run. And in this case, it's going to set up the same process we just looked at. It's going to create the instance of the Outlook object. It's going to create the shell underneath that. And then it's going to get the string that we want, pass it along, and run it, and then catch the output and return it to the main function here. So a little bit of just basic programming here, but it's basically more or less the exact same code snippets we just looked at, except for we're running it as a separate function here, and it's just going to return the information for us. So the cooler part, and the part that I think everyone will find a little bit more interesting, is going to be our server setup portion of it.
Wow. So my favorite comment so far has been like, this shows a little bit like how to rob a bank at your own risk. This is more like how banks are robbed. Don't do it.
Right. Right. fair enough. I can see that point.
Oh, and also for the third time, yes, the stream will be recorded. So if you're sleepy or just catching this, then it will be recorded. You can check it out on Null Byte or on hackingwithfriends.com or the SecurityFWD channel.
Yep. Perfect. So here's the other function, the send to server function. So this is new for us in terms of this process here. So when we call this function, what it's going to do is, I mean, something really, really basic. I mean, everybody can do this at home. This part's not particularly evil or scary or anything like that, and it's pretty common in a lot of scripts. So what it's going to do is simply create a new HTTP object, and it's going to set the URL to be, here's the line if everyone wants to see where it is. So I've created my new HTTP object right here, and I'm going to set the URL, same machine, internal, it could be any machine, and what it's going to do is it's going to open this for post. You can see the HTTP object open and post to the URL. So that's just going to let me do just a basic old, plain vanilla day one of internet basics post to a website here. It does a couple tricky things that I want to point out too. It sets some of the like the user agent to a Mozilla compatible browser. This is a little bit tricky for attackers to try and hide their tracks a little bit. So if you're using it from like PowerShell or something, the user agent could be PowerShell or something other type of thing, odd or anomalous, that threat responders and threat investigators will look for. So this is trying to be a little bit tricky now and saying, hey, don't mind us, we're just a web browser. But
yeah, this is,
like I said,
that's a great point, because like a random PowerShell process starting to send web traffic from a computer that never does that is a great way to get caught. So like this script is taking some basic steps here at evasion. And also there's a really good question I just wanted to ask real quick. If you don't have the program that it's trying to call installed, then is that a workaround? Like if you don't use Outlook?
So basically if I tried to run this and I didn't have Outlook installed, it would just break down. It wouldn't be able to create an instance of it, and you'd have an error in your code.
Hey.
So, yeah.
Look at that. That's how you can defeat North Korean hackers. Just uninstall Outlook. Just kidding.
Right.
But yeah, so that would throw a wrench in this process, to answer your question. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, you can put some, I don't want to get too deep into the coding, but you can put some error handling in so it doesn't like spectacularly bomb out and throw an error the user would see. You can quietly handle the error and move on to something else. And I mean, you could get really crazy with it if you want, if there was multiple steps in this process. But this is kind of a very straightforward example of this.
Someone else is asking if antivirus would detect this kind of attack. I would say no, because it's not a virus. It's just using legitimate functions in a malicious way.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. So right now, there's nothing in here that's particularly odd or unusual. The way we're putting it together is to do it, but an HTTP post, that's basic web traffic that, we do it all the time. We submit things. PowerShell running is not particularly unusual either. There's nothing in here that would be flagged as a malicious code sample really to date right now. They get a lot of false positives because there could be legitimate reasons for some of this too.
Right.
And this is also really epitomizes the living off the land philosophy, is using as many built-in tools and programs as you can on the system for your own end. So the macro functionality is built right into Excel. It's part of the package to write this. PowerShell is built into Windows, every version of it for a while now. So we're not introducing new executables or binaries that would get picked up so far.
Also, Felix says that he's a North Korean and he's offended by my comment. So I'm very sorry. Please do not hack me. I know you guys are smarter than that. Let's just drop it. All right.
Cool. So in this case, we'll send the message box, and then we'll send it to the server here, and I'll show you what this looks like. So let's go ahead and run this. And as I mentioned, this time we're going to do an IP config command. Hey, as an attacker, I want to know, maybe the IP address and the subnet and some other information about the machine that I've compromised. So run that. Here's my pop-up box. You can see it comes right here. So this is the information we're going to post. So 1061.174.198. Don't worry, Kody, it's small on my screen too.
Okay.
My old eyes are trying to focus on it, but take my word for it. So here we go. Okay. Now if I open my super secret attacker command and control channel, here we can see this information from the victim. So just regular old over HTTP, that information popped up. And wrong guy. So in the background, I have been running Wireshark to capture this information here too. And I posted it on port 5000, I think. So let me just add a filter in here, TCP port 5000. Add that in there. Okay.
Ooh.
I might have to do this again because I don't think I was filtering it. Oh, actually, here it is. Never mind. I'm so smart. I had this set up before. So in this case, here is that information. So I filtered it down just to TCP port 5000. I'm on the same machine, so I can see my post command. So it's just an HTTP post. I can, if I wanted to, drill into the headers. Down here, here's my user agent that I set. Here's my desktop where it's going to. I can look in the data if I want to. I mean, the data is down here anyway. It doesn't show the whole thing here, but it's down here in the view pane down the bottom. But here's the relevant bit of the body of it. IP configuration. Let's see if I can find the IP address so everybody believes me. Let me zoom in so I can see it too, maybe.
Cool.
Ethernet adapter. There we go. Here it is, 1061, 174.98. So down here in the body, this is the information. Again, just over HTTP post. Please zoom out. There we go. And here's that information right here. So very, very easy, simple, straightforward way to move data to communicate. So in this case, I just had it return some text information, but you can move data or establish any type of command control. So as the attacker, I had this just run this command for me right off the bat. But this is how we build out that functionality of command and control. So
now let me put a twist on this also. Like if you were a less friendly attacker at this point,
right,
and all you wanted to do was a smash and grab, you could instead run something that looks for any important data shares and then just encrypts them and then sends the encryption key over your exfiltration channel.
Right.
And provided you've covered your tracks enough, it could be very, very difficult for the defender to either know that all their files were rapidly being encrypted or then do anything about it once you'd managed to do this. So while we're showing off a relatively benign exfiltration of just some IP information that could be the first step in doing a command and control for a botnet or a larger attack, this could be any attack. You could couple anything, no matter how stupid on it. So there's a lot of different ways that this could be abused, and we're kind of just showing off a proof of concept that's trying to get across to you guys how serious this is and how easy it is for people to do, and why it's important to be vigilant, especially about Office macros. Tell everyone you know about these attacks, and make sure that it's very commonly known at businesses you work at, or in your own personal lives or with your loved ones, that they should not open documents that have this feature enabled.
I mean, that's exactly it. That was, I say back in the good old days, that's what ransomware was really a couple years ago when it first started to take off is, hey, get someone to run this. It's going to wipe out their machine. It's going to send the key back. Please pay us some Bitcoins and drop a ransom note. But especially with the more sophisticated attackers, the APT groups, the nation states, typically we see them in a lot of cases live in corporate organizations for weeks, months, sometimes years before getting detected if they're very, very stealthy. And as part of that process, they want to try and cover their tracks and maintain control as long as possible. And that's what I want to show just very quickly here on this next one. I had pasted in another one. Down below, we're going to do a ping this time, so we're going to change it up a little bit. And we have two new functions. We have send to server and we have send to server ENC or encrypted. So send to server one's the same one we looked at before. Let me show you what the encrypted one looks like very quickly so everyone can see it. So here is the establishment of the connection. So there we go. So looks very, very similar to what we were seeing before. We actually have a new function called encrypt, and we're sending it to a different site on my desktop here, so /enc. So we can differentiate that from the normal non-encrypted one. Otherwise, the setup on this is the same. It's an HTTP post again. But as a clever attacker, I want to avoid detection as much as possible. I don't want, if someone happens to be capturing the packets on it, I don't want them to see this strange information going across the wire. So we have our encrypt function here. So we're going to send our ping, and here we have this. We have another function called encode base64. But what we're going to do is we're going to be a little bit trickier. So again, this is not technically encryption. This is encoding it. So we're just going to change the encoding on it so it's not human readable text. But we want to throw a little bit of a wrench in this here. So we're going to encode it. But once we get our encoded data string back, at Kody, I know you are great at Raspberry Pis, and I know you've created one that decodes base64, because this is a pretty common thing that attackers do, is just obfuscate some of the code here. So to trick you up, Kody, I'm gonna switch it up here on you. So when I encode it, I'm basically going to take the string output back, and I'm gonna basically add 1 to it. So I have my little for loop here, so it's just gonna run through my data coming out, and it's going to add 1 to the character. So it's not gonna look like base64 code.
Yeah, so this is great because like base64 is very commonly used in programming in order to preserve code during transit. So and that's kind of what we're doing here. So like in order to throw anybody off who is recognizing base64 and just tries to decode it via standard methods, this is going to create something that kind of looks like base64, but if you try to decode it, comes back to nothing. And unless you know the method it was salted with, and by the way, I would consider this to be a salt on base64. So you're taking a code, you're adding some random values to it or a preset value to it, and you come back with something that's different from the standard. So it's not, this isn't really like, you know, like encryption, it's salting like a code basically. But for anybody who's trying to just decode this or automatically detect it and decode it, this will throw a wrench in a lot of programs that might do automatic decoding of base64 to see if there's malicious like stuff in there if it's being transported through the network. So if this was a bigger company, then this could be something that would get you detected if you didn't take the time to make sure that your code, your base64 code, was shifted a little bit so it couldn't, you know, from just any open source or easy to come by like IDS, like be able to detect like if something was going on. And there was also a comment I really liked that just said big punishment for the secretary, and I'm like, damn, yeah, I guess, like, yes.
Listen, let's not be too hard. This can happen to anybody, honestly. It's even, you know, smart people on the lookout for it. We're all in such a hurry, you know. We're all working a million hours. We're going a million, you know, different directions every day, and it's really easy. So you know, I'm not gonna say big punishment for the secretary. I'm gonna have some compassion here, because I think this is something that even very smart people and very diligent people could potentially fall for.
Absolutely. So this is big punishment for anybody that opens it.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at that now that we've added that salted function. Just to remind everybody one more time, we're doing a ping this time, so ping 8888. So that's the Google DNS, I believe. And let's take a look what that looks like. So I'm going to run my macro again. There we go. There we go. So here it is on the command and control channel side. So here's our first time.
Can we zoom in a little?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me
Thank you.
Go in here.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Slightly cut off, but beautiful.
Yeah, let me. This is there it goes. Okay.
Cool.
It tracks by where the mouse is at, and if it's not right on point, it'll zoom in somewhere else. So here's the unencrypted data here at the top, so the ping. And then down below, here's the encrypted or the salted or whatever you want to hash, base64 encryption. Sends that over the wire. So if you happen to be dumping the package, if you happen to be sniffing it or reassembling the traffic here, it's going to look like a bunch of gibberish at this point. And then the system is going to simply decode that down here. So on the other side, we know that we've done it through a base64 encoding function. We know what the salt is in this case, so we can detect it on the attacker side. And you can see here's this information here. And again, just to prove it to everybody, let me show you the packet capture information. So I think this is my first post.
Somebody is just like, a Firefox user would never fall for this. We need to change the user agent.
Excellent observation. That's it. Our whole thing falls apart.
Like, wait a minute.
So here we go. So here is the unencrypted traffic. And you see here's the ping. We just posted it to the standard one. So ping 888, and here's the reply down here in the body. And then if we look slightly further down, since we posted this to the separate site, the /enc site, let me see if I can get these next to each other, just so everyone can see. I'm not pulling anyone's leg with the traffic here. So it got cut off, but take my word for it. So here's the encrypted post, and there's the body, and it matches up with what we have over here. So again, you can see the packet capture information is obfuscated at this point. So as a defender, if I was reassembling this packet stream here and trying to look at it or do some automated processing on it, it's going to look like a bunch of gibberish. I'm going to see the connection here, but it's not telling me a whole lot because it could be anything going across because it's protected. It could just be, some random string of data, or I'm not going to say checksum, but it could be anything.
Yeah, yeah, and this is something that, like, at a very, like, basic level is designed to defeat anything that might be running on the network looking for specific, like, suspicious behavior. So, like, this really gives us a lot more flexibility in what we send because we don't need to, like, be careful about sending certain things like URLs or stuff like that because, it's not going to be able to see into this packet as easily unless, like, we take the extra step of trying to do, like, an incident analysis and try to figure out what happened. Yeah, this is like a very scary way of showing like how simple it is to mess up and get somebody not only like deeply into your computer, but also be able to hide their presence on that computer and the network too, even with modern like, antivirus and like sort of monitoring software running on the network that's looking for kind of signs like this.
Absolutely. And just as we were kind of going through that, here's the closing act. Here's the showstopper for everybody at this point. We've established that we can bypass some of the controls on here. We've established that we can run arbitrary commands on the system if we want to. We've established that we can do an external command and control and move data back and forth or out of the organization to the attacker. But let's put the command and control here. So I pasted in my new function. We can see we've just commented out my my other functions. Now we just have start C2. And I'll zoom in for everybody to see it right here. Here is my start C2. And this is pretty straightforward. In this case, it's just a basic do while loop. So it's just going to keep running this loop. So from loop to do while. And it's going to keep repeating this process. It's going to communicate, set up the channel to the /C2 site. And it's going to wait for me to do anything until I say stop. So it's going to set up the connection. It's going to check my replies. And then it's going to run my run command at this point.
And someone's just like, of course, imagine defenders in SOC. Excel is sending data to external website and it's obfuscated. False positive.
I don't want to be in the SOC that day when that happens. I'll tell you what. So in this case, we have that same loop. We have the encryption if we wanted to. But other than that, that's really about the only thing that's different in here from the code perspective. And the cool thing about this, and what I love about this, the way that this is set up, is just build on top of itself. So let's go ahead and run this and take a look and see what that looks like. So here I'm going to run it again. Thinking about it. There we go. Okay, cool. So here we can say get data from C2, enter your command. And if I wanted to, I can pop up my Wireshark and show you that that I'm going to have traffic. Here's my post to C2. Start. And we saw that in the code. So let's do something. Net user maybe. There we go. So let's see what users I have on the machine that I'm on. So I'm on desktop 1. I knew that already. I can verify that I am. We actually have guests. We have the IT admin who I'm logged in with. This is a great way to start doing some recon. Who else has been logged into this machine? Net group / that's it. So, so here are all of my groups from my domain. So it just did a net groups in this case. So it's returned the information from my domain controller. I can start kind of doing anything I want at this point. I can issue commands back and forth to it. And as you can see, again, here's that information as I promised. It's really hard to see, but let me just zoom in very quickly.
Oh.
There it is. We're not obfuscating it in this case here, so everyone can see it. But it's interactive. I'm talking over the network, of course. And right now I'm just running simple text-based commands, but it doesn't end there. Kody, are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
I hope it works this time. I hope it didn't break it. Last time I broke it. I think I did break it. I think I did break it.
Oh, what happened?
I think I did something to it. Let me run it again. There we go. Work. There it goes.
Yes! Oh my god, this is my favorite thing. So I just have to always throughout the story, our production manager, Michael, has uninstalled the calculator on his computer because I make it pop up at random times all the time. But really what we've done here is every hacker's dream. If you are on a red team and you need to let someone know that you've owned your computer and you can run any binary that you want, then you pop calc. It's just what we do. It's in our nature to pop calc. So this is the crescendo. Like, thank you, Kilian. You brought us all the way from a suspicious email with an Office attachment to popping calc on a system. And of course, this calculator could be an evil calculator if we wanted it to be.
Yeah, and I can call any other executable I want, and I can feed a commands in here because we've established that shell. So this is just an example of that. But at this point, again, I own this machine. I can do other malicious things. I can, from this point, once I've established a foothold, I can start reconning the network, learning what other machines are out there, use some DNS reverse lookup, which is, again, pretty normal functionality, but abusing it to find out what other machines are on the network at their IP addresses and start to target other machines to move around. Or, even run commands on this machine to search for sensitive data and then stream it back up to myself or post it over HTTP if I wanted to. So, and that's kind of the point is once you've established this is where all of these attacks start. It starts with something little. It starts with, one machine and somebody making a mistake on a bad day, and they can spiral out of control. And again, that's why I want to bring it all the way back to talk about that defense in depth is we need to have multiple layers of control. We can't just count on one to be there. Because the best controls in the whole world, we have very smart people out there that spend all day trying to figure out how to bypass them and hack them or find an exploit around it. And that's kind of the big thing that I wanted to cover.
So one person asked if this was getting an admin instance, and no, if we had longer, then we would show like how you can take whatever person who ran this and then try to do something like brute force domain credentials or like otherwise be able to get access to a different account on the system. Right. And we have lots of different demonstrations about this that we do at Varonis for like their live demos. So if you're ever curious about like this kind of like heavy hitting attack stuff, we do a lot of these like live like demos that are really, really in depth and show all these details. And yeah, because we have to, because like major organizations fall for this stuff all the time, you guys. And that's why we're showing you, because we want to talk about how to stay safe and how to keep your computer secure. And when we talk about how this can like, evade antivirus and stuff, it doesn't mean that this is like a surefire way to break into a computer. If you, for example, were to go after a Varonis customer, you would get caught because we have seen this before. We know about it. We came up with this lab because we see people trying to pull this one so often. And basically, like most companies will, as Kilian said, have defense in depth. So as soon as that user account does something it's never done before, even if that thing looks relatively benign, it will be flagged and investigated because everybody knows the first step in catching someone who's been breached is looking for things that account has never done before, that's outside their job description, that makes absolutely no sense for them to do. So when we're talking about like how easy this is to do and whatever, like, does this work? Yes. Is it something you need to watch out for? Yes. Do organizations get popped by this all the time? Yes. But is there ways to defend against it? Absolutely. And the company we both work for, Varonis, like, is one of the ones that does it because they know that like it's suspicious behavior that's the best way to catch people doing this sort of stuff. Because I mean, this is so easy, as we said, a child could do it. The original proof of concept was 6 lines, so it's not like we're like revealing to you guys this like amazing like secret thing. Everybody knows about this, you guys. So like this is something that attackers use all the time. It's something that people need to and companies need to know about and defend against. Just never enable macros, you guys. There's pretty much no reason to ever do it. But this is something that please like spread this to your non-technical friends. If you're at work, make sure that people at work know that this is how they can get breached and that it doesn't take much work to do it. Because ransomware gangs and other people that are looking to take advantage of how simple this is and go after the lowest hanging fruit will send this to every single employee in your organization, and it only takes one of them to have a giant data store that maybe wasn't locked down enough ransomware. Another point is like a lot of companies don't take the time to make sure that every person in the entire company doesn't have access to everything. So somebody asked like, oh, is this an admin account? That doesn't matter. If every single person in the company has access to all the files in the company, anybody messing up in the entire company can cause the entire company to be ransomware. So there's companies like ours that also go through and make sure that not every single person in the company has access to all the sensitive stuff that could be stolen, encrypted, changed, modified, like whatever. And if they do start accessing in ways that's suspicious, they get flagged. So do big modern companies that have, security resources have the ability to combat, detect, and deal with this? Oh, totally. I mean, if you pull the stuff that we just did on any one of as we said, a Varonis customer or someone who has similar software installed, you will get caught because this is not very, this is not sneaky compared to the stuff we have to deal with on a daily basis. We deal with some crazy stuff, you guys, like stuff that, nation states like pour tons of money into. So like, this is a very basic example for us that we just want to show because anybody could be hit by this. And if it's you, we want you to understand like what to do. So what do? Delete the email, like don't open the file, do not enable macros. And also I have to give a shout out, like this is our second ever live stream. So if you guys like this, please make sure to comment. Please let us know also on the Security Forward channel, that's SecurityFWD, and you can check it out on hackingwithfriends.com if you want to see more stuff like this. We would love to do more live streams like this and have other experts such as Kilian himself or other Kilian-like types on to show more of these sorts of attacks and provide more great resources for people who are getting into cybersecurity and want to learn about this. So please subscribe, let us know, leave us comments on both the Null Byte channel and also the Security Forward channel. And again, check out our live streams that we do. We do them 3 times a week, you guys. Like we have a lot of content over there. So if you want to catch more great live streams like this, ask us questions in person rather than hoping that we like see your comment in the sea of comments like on the Null Byte channel, then please ask us questions. We love to answer them on the stream. And it's been a pleasure getting to know some of you guys in the stream. You've asked excellent questions and I've seen a lot of you helping each other out with those questions we didn't have a chance to answer. So I just have to say, like in this time of lockdown, it is amazing to have a community out there that is helping each other, that is like interacting with us, that's giving us ideas and keeping this stuff fresh. We really love you guys and you've made Null Byte and also the Security Forward channel possible. So for everybody like Zam that came from us from the Security Forward channel, thank you for helping us get this community even bigger and more organized. And for everybody on the Null Byte channel, thank you for growing it to the largest hacker channel, at least that I'm aware of, on YouTube. We passed 700,000 subscribers recently, and I just want to say to all of you, I never imagined it would get this big this quickly when I started it like 3-some years ago, and the people at Null Byte originally thought it was a terrible idea, but since then I've gotten amazing support from them, especially Justin. Justin at Null Byte is the editor behind all the content you read on the entire website. He is fantastic and one of the best people I've worked with. So I just want to thank everybody that made this stream possible because it almost didn't happen, you guys, but we did it, and I'm very, very happy with how it went. So thank you all for hanging out with us. If you didn't get your questions answered, I do a weekly, or actually every other weekly, live Q&A stream on the Security Forward channel. So go ahead and leave your question there. We will answer it live on the show. And overall, like, thank you guys so much for your support. We really appreciate it, and we love sharing this stuff with you. So hopefully this doesn't get taken down from YouTube. And if it doesn't, then we'll keep doing this. And yeah, thank you again. So everybody stay safe out there. Don't get arrested. Don't do this on any computer that you don't have permission to. Last time I'll say it so everyone can see we clearly stated this, because you will get caught and in trouble and we're not liable. But if you have any questions, yeah, just hit us up. hackingwithfriends.com, Null Byte, Security Forward. We're always happy to see you. So we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.